What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Christian Agent Podcast. We have an incredible guest and topic for you today, the AI-powered Christian agent. Ooh, that's very spicy, Bianca. I'm excited about that topic because it's everywhere, and Christians have been talking about and asking me, and I've been in conversations of how do Christians engage with AI, and what is even a biblical approach, a theological approach, what is a business approach? We're not going to be able to tackle all of that because, quite honestly, I don't know. Neither does my guest to know the full theological answer to how we should engage AI, but we're gonna tackle that topic today, share some actual how-tos, and Bianca's gonna get into some of the best practices on how you can use it to better your business, better your life, the things that you're doing, and we're gonna talk about also from a spiritual perspective. So I'm excited for y'all to hear this conversation. We hope it's gonna be a blessing to you. But before I do, as always, make sure if you haven't, go into the show notes, check out the free school where I teach every Wednesday on how Christian agents can sell 3 to 4 homes a month by relationship. I hope it'll be a blessing to you. But I'm so glad that you're here. Leave a 5-star review. If you haven't, shared this with a friend. This is meant to bless the Christian agent community. That's why I'm here. That's why this exists. So excited for y'all to be with us. Excited for my incredible guest, Bianca Downs. But before I introduce her, she has a joke, which my gut tells me is better than mine. So Bianca, I'm going to go first because I don't know. I mean, our audience knows, like, you know, I have spent way too long trying to find jokes that I haven't heard before, so it's hard for them to be funny to me. So hopefully this one is. Okay, Bianca, what is one of the things that Adam and Eve did after they kicked... Let me start over. That was terrible. What is one of the things that Adam and Eve did after they were kicked out of the garden? They raised Cain. Hey, you like that's actually kind of funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
That's pretty clever.
I like that one. I didn't come up with it, but I did Google it. Okay, what do you got?
All right, here's another one. Why didn't Noah need AI to build the ark?
I don't know.
Because he already had divine instructions and a solid blueprint straight from the cloud.
Nice. Fantastic. That's like both biblical and funny. I like that one. Nice job. Yeah. Did you come up with that yourself?
Or no, a little bit AI? Of research, a little bit of technology, put it all together.
Nice. I like it. I like one of the practical ways to use AI, guys. Come on now. If you're not creating your own dad jokes, I don't know why you're ever on ChatGPT, right, Bianca? So we've got Bianca Downs here with us. I am so excited for y'all to get to meet her and get to know her. We connected, gosh, I guess a couple months ago, and it just same heart to serve Christian agents. And Bianca's just got such a great skill set that she's going to bless you guys with today. She's a wife and toddler mom. She's the managing real estate broker in Las Vegas and founder of Freedom AI Solutions, which is a consulting firm based in Las Vegas, helping entrepreneurs and companies start using AI in a way that actually makes sense. She's also now in the early stages of building a community for Christian women in business called Chosen Women. And I personally have signed up for her. She'll get a chance to share with you. It's called Cayenne. It is an AI suite, I guess you would say, of a bunch of different tools that help real estate agents. And it is awesome. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to share that with y'all. If not, there'll be a link in the show notes. But Bianca, thank you so much for coming on. I am thrilled that you're here. Do a quick introduction of yourself and we are going to dive right in.
Thank you so much, Garrett. You know, I'm honestly very honored to be here because of this space that you've created for Christian agents. Yesterday, I celebrated my 11th year anniversary as a licensed agent.
Wow, that's awesome.
To be here, you know, 11 years into the business and be in alignment with you and everything that you've built in this space is an honor to me. So I'm excited to dig in. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're super kind. I appreciate it. I don't feel like I've done anything yet, but I'm excited for what we are building together, right? And all the people that the Lord's bringing around. So, well, let's dive right into this topic. Right? We want to talk about the AI-powered Christian agent. So I think we should maybe start from the spiritual biblical perspective, right? And what I mean by that is, as we talked briefly pre-show, you know, AI is the hot topic of the day, especially for business owners and people in our space. We're all talking about how do I need to engage AI? Do I need to engage AI? You know, what is my approach to AI? What kind of tools do I need to be using? And we're going to get into the practical here in a little bit. My first question to you is from a biblical Christian agent perspective, right? Is it necessary for us to engage AI, first of all? And number two, we'll dive into that after we answer that. Number two is, how do we even view artificial intelligence, right? It's easy for us to have a misunderstanding or a skewed perspective of how to use it, how to think about it, right? And I kind of want us to put it in a, you know, to the best of our ability, Bianca, a nice little box for us to start to grasp and understand. Everybody needs to go seek discernment on their own. But let's start here. So is it necessary, right? Talk about AI and the improvements and everything happening. Does a business owner today, someone in real estate, do they need to be engaging with AI?
From a traditional worldview, and I'll be honest, I struggled with this a lot until somewhat recently, trying to figure out from a biblical perspective what my viewpoint is on AI. And then from a business perspective, you feel like anywhere you look, the answer is yes, you need to get an AI or you're going to be left behind. And I feel like that's pretty much the story and the narrative that's being told all around. But from a biblical standpoint, it really is a foundation of having discernment. And for me, like I said, I really kind of struggled with that. I just felt like I needed to start on AI, and I was keeping both of my faith and my love for innovation in separate containers. So up until recently, I decided that I was done keeping them in separate containers and that now they are going to be in one. And now I think I'm at a much better space where I've learned that I just need to check in with myself and check in with what it is that I'm using these tools and this technology for, and having, like you said, that discernment. First and foremost is asking for discernment.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And, it is hard because I think there's so much misunderstanding of what it is, right? And there's anything, social media, when cell phones came out, right? Like all of those have the ability. Everything that man creates and touches is marred by sin. It just is. And so there's always going to be an avenue where someone's going to use it for wicked, evil purposes, right? So I think that's definitely true. But from my perspective, at least, and I'm not nearly as good at this as you are, right? From an AI perspective, but I think that there are a lot of Christians, perhaps right now, just playing the game of burying their head in the sand, like, it's just going to go away. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to understand it. I think quite the opposite. And, I don't know that I have, and I love your opinion, I don't know that I have a full-on biblical understanding and perspective of how we're supposed to engage and what that looks like, right? Because like all of this technology, scripture doesn't say, beware the cell phone, right? Beware the artificial intelligence, none of those things. But I do believe that as Christians, we're supposed to be in the world, not of it, and being part of this world and being part of having excellence in the business world is utilizing the tools that exist. And now I think there's both a challenge of now it's forced us into this false sense of high efficiency, right? And there's so much data, we got to do all this stuff. But also at the same time, as a Christian, in particular in the real estate industry, because that's who we're talking to, we should be the most excellent agents out there because we want to seek to honor the Lord and work for him, not for man. And so aren't these tools necessary things for us to understand and at least engage in? I mean, what do you think?
Absolutely, because as long as we can remember that, although AI specific is, what we're talking about, but like you said, technology is ever evolving. And so whether it's technology in general or from a specific viewpoint of AI, it is powerful and it's incredibly needed in our business, but it's not the source, right? As long as we remember that, in my case, like the Holy Spirit and why I'm using these tools and what my end goal is and what I'm building with these tools and what is that putting out to the world, that is what is important to me, is remembering that is the source. And not to become fully reliant on it either, because it is ever evolving. And I feel like if we become, it's just like with cell phones and like you said, all this other technology, we have become, I think, reliant, and it's addictive, right? When we get into all this technology and the kind of the stronghold, I think, that people tend to start to have with these. So it kind of comes back to being level-minded with what are we using these tools for. I believe that we're called to multiply what God gives us and not to kind of hold to ourselves. And AI particularly is such a strong tool to be able to do that, and faster and more efficient. And so for me, especially in real estate, whether it's, for a Christian community or it's for actual productivity inside of my business, it's just remembering that AI is getting me to my end goal. And as long as my heart is centered, then that's where I remember that I'm going with it.
And I do everything. I mean, I agree with you 100%. It is about, at the end of the day, everything is bringing it before the Lord. I don't, to me, there's not one set hard and fast rule that Christians must follow when it comes to artificial intelligence. We've both been talking about this is where individual discernment comes in. And if you feel convictionally like you shouldn't use it or you need to stay away from certain aspects of it, whatever, then do that, right? Now, if you use that as an excuse to not become better, then that's sin. I'm just going to flat out call it out. Like if you just say, oh, I'm not supposed to use this just because you don't want to go learn it, or it's scary, or it's hard to understand, whatever, seek a biblical perspective and then engage with whatever you feel is appropriate, right? I think that's 100% true. Now, here's what I think is really interesting, Bianca, because, and you kind of touched on this, the reality is, right, this can make us more efficient. It can make us better. It can make us smarter, I guess. I don't fully understand how that works, but it can enhance what we already do, right? I'm gonna throw kind of a curveball question because I am curious your perspective. I've gotten into conversations with people and saying, hey, as Christians, if I use AI and say, whatever, write this social post for me, and then I just take it and post it. I mean, am I being biblical in the sense of, is that not kind of a lie that I put it out there as if it's mine with no caveat to say, written with the help of ChatGPT or whatever? Is that, from a biblical perspective, do you think it's okay as Christians to just start putting out this content without any credence to say, wasn't written just by me, right? Like the book that I have coming up, I actually wrote that, right? Now, I'm going to give credit to my two editors as well because they were extremely helpful. Is that what we should be doing when it comes to ChatGPT or other tools as well? I mean, how do you think a Christian agent or Christians in general should handle that?
I think that's a question that can really be discussed in many layers deep. Because we are fundamentally using, from a biblical perspective, to be honest, Garrett, I think that's it's difficult for me to say because I don't say necessarily that it's a lie, but at the same time, we've been using help for things like copywriting and content creation and all of that in other avenues and ways of technology. Now, it goes back to just keeping it back to the main principles of you should not just copy and paste something that AI gives you without putting your own. I teach my numbers are going off. The 20-60-20 rule. And I always call it
sorry, to make sure I laughed over you, 20-60-20?
Yeah. Okay, so it's basically like an Oreo. I call it the Oreo method. And what it is that it's like an Oreo. The top cookie is the first 20%. And that is, you kind of getting started with AI, using it to build the foundation of whatever it is that the project is. And then the middle is the good stuff. And with the good stuff is, the cream that everybody likes, that comes only from us. And from our own, domain, our own experiences, our own teachings, our own knowledge. And that's really where the good stuff is. And then you come in with that last percent and you refine, polish, and finish. So that together is kind of what makes this perfect Oreo cookie. And yes, I think because AI has gotten so advanced, I think people are slowly losing potentially that middle part and relying more on the AI. But that's why I think it's just really important to, consider the two cookies, the top and the bottom, and really make sure that we're staying focused on the good stuff that only we can provide.
That's good. And I definitely think, I love that perspective. And I think that we have to be reminded that these are intelligent computer programs, but they don't have wisdom, right? Wisdom comes from the Lord, and all that artificial intelligence, all that any of us do is reorganize the information that the Lord has already made true, right? R.C. Sproul used to talk all the time. No one actually creates anything anymore. They just reorganize into different ways, right? Because the Lord's the only one who actually created something from nothing, and we just take the things that already exist in this world and we reorganize them in an interesting way. And so, we need to, part of the struggle that I've had personally, Bianca, honestly, is it'll be easy. It's easier for me. Let me say this. It is easier for me to go to ChatGPT and say, this is who you are, and ask me questions and help me figure this out, as opposed to, and I think that's good, right? Don't hear me say, I think you should do that. The second part is what I don't do, and then go before the Lord and say, hey, Lord, this is what I worked through, but please grant me wisdom and understanding, because what makes and you understand these better, significantly better than I do, but what makes logical sense, which is kind of how these machines operate. What makes logical sense doesn't mean it's the purpose of the Lord, right? Because if you think of Jonah in scripture, if Jonah had ChatGPT, which clearly he didn't, but if he did, and it was like, hey, ChatGPT, these people all hate the Lord, and I was told to go here and all this stuff, and like, I'm not sure that I want to, help me ask questions, whatever. It might have led him to, this is a terrible example, but it might have led him, right, to say, you're right, you shouldn't be going to Nineveh. What are you doing? Go back home. And he could have said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Right now, the Lord would have still caught him up in a big fish and, spit him back out. But the point is, we can't go there as if that is just like the Lord granting us wisdom and understanding. It's a really helpful tool. Like the way I at least look at it, Bianca, and I want you to kind of, end us here before we get into some tactical, but the way I tend to look at it is it's as if I have either a really smart coach or a really smart assistant kind of available whenever I need them, and they can help me become more intelligent, think in deeper ways, right? Maybe ask me questions or help me process things that I'm doing at a quicker pace. And I have a coach and an actual assistant, right? I think those things are valuable too, but utilizing those tools as such to help enhance the skill sets that the Lord has given me, not to just bypass the hard work that is necessary. I mean, what do you think about that? Like, what is an appropriate way for us to think on AI and how we attach that to our day-to-day life?
So for me, there's, as I mentioned, I had kind of been struggling with this whole topic, like I've shared with you very transparently, kind of combining the two. And so there's a framework that I really kind of fall on to and that I really like, and it's called the soul framework. The talk is that AI has no soul, and I mean, obviously, right? But so I really like the name of this framework, and basically what it stands for is the S is stewardship, using the tools to multiply, not to hustle. The O is obedience, should support the assignment, not distract you from it. The U is understanding, like James 1:5, ask God for wisdom before adding another system and finalizing your strategy. And the L is love, which I kind of referenced Galatians 5:13. And Galatians 5:13 is actually the scripture in which I founded the name Freedom AI. So going to Galatians, for you have been called to live in freedom, my brothers and sisters, but don't use your freedom to satisfy your sinful nature. Instead, use your freedom to serve one another in love. And I think that kind of really aligns with the L part of the soul, and making sure that we kind of continue to maintain that human connection and that human. In fact, I think that the human connection and human actual access to human, the value of that is going to go up. And while everybody is afraid that that's going to diminish because everything is becoming more AI and artificial and robotic, I think that the value of actual human connection and one-to-one, that's going to go up. And as long as we kind of remember Galatians 5:13 along that way, I think that that's kind of setting us up for good.
Yeah.
So that's the soul framework.
Yeah. So stewardship. You said stewardship, and then read the rest of that for me, or remind me the rest of that.
For stewardship?
Yeah, for stewardship.
Basically just using the tools to multiply. And that's where, it comes back to me, which is I am a real estate agent. I serve into my clients and my community, but I'm also really faith-based and wanting to, be surrounded by other faith-based people. But how can AI help me to steward others, whether it's my clients, my colleagues, and just other people that I'm interacting with in my day-to-day?
That's good. Yeah, that's an interesting concept too, is the stewardship aspect of we have this tool now, right? We have access to this tool now. Will we steward it? Yes or no? And what does that look like? Like, that's really helpful for me, even just that first piece of the soul framework. That's really helpful to think of. I've got stewardship now. Even when it comes to whatever, your money, are you stewarding that well? And are you using ChatGPT to help you process through, the trends or the data or whatever? Your health, are you using it to, I heard or read a recent article, Bianca, of this woman who, I think she was roughly my age. I'm 38. She had 2 little kids and went to the doctor. She said, I think I have cancer, and they kept telling her, no, no, no. She used ChatGPT and figured out what she thought it was, went to them, and they're like, oh, maybe you're right. And then they started treating her. Guess what? She had cancer, and, it saved her life, right? Like in the Lord's providence. But, are we even stewarding the resources that we have? Well, a question I ask myself, and there's no necessarily answer to, right? But is, if Jesus were alive today, would he engage in X, Y, and Z? Right? Even my wife and I were at, we had a date night the other night, and we went out and got ice cream. And it's like, I know the stuff in this ice cream is not good for me, but it's delicious, right? And so I asked a question, and neither of us know, but we're like, if Jesus were alive today, would he just enjoy the things that the Lord had given us and him? And I don't know that answer, right? But how would, I'm not trying to bring that to WWJD bracelets, right? Maybe we should, Bianca. Maybe you and I should start that. But like, what would he actually have done? And would he have engaged it? And I think I can say with certainty, he certainly wouldn't have ignored it, right? And as Christian agents, we've got to understand it because it's here. Agents want to have conversation about it. How do we put it properly in our own lives, in our own business, and in our day-to-day actions, right? And as Christians, how do we think differently about it as stewardship, as opposed to, this is going to make me millions and millions of dollars, whatever that might mean. Yeah. So go ahead.
And with that, if we look at Exodus 18:17 through 18, it says, "For this is not good. Moses' father-in-law explained, 'You're going to wear yourself out, and the people too. This job is too heavy of a burden for you to handle all by yourself.'" So when I was kind of preparing my notes for this, I think that kind of stood out to me and reminded me, that even Moses needed help and was told to delegate that wisdom kind of advice that his father-in-law gave him, to delegate, to create systems. Because when he was taking the people out of Egypt, like he was kind of doing so much by himself. And so kind of goes back to that biblical principle, at least for me, that's kind of what I tied it into, is that even back then there was, this concept of delegating and not being able to, not doing too much on yourself and carrying all of it to yourself. And so when you're asking, would Jesus, engage in XYZ in today's day, we don't know, but I tend to believe that, their use of being able to delegate these things to technology, AI or not, other technology, potentially could show that, maybe that is in alignment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he would have had a cell phone, right? Or had a computer, or, I don't, this is not extra biblical. I don't know the answer. Like you said, I don't know what he would have done, but it seems to make sense that he would be engaged with what the world is doing, again, in it, not of it. And so he shouldn't fall in love, or he wouldn't have, right? As Christ, we should not fall in love with these tools and what they can do for us and rely on them as if they are fact and biblical and godly and all the things. Correct. But I think we should engage with him, right? So, okay. So if an agent has shown up here and they already are like, yeah, I want to engage, right? Or maybe they didn't feel like they should. Maybe they were burying their head in the sand, but now they're going to engage. How do they even start, right? Because I think it is overwhelming, at least from my perspective, Bianca, when I talk to people about AI, which is not nearly as often as you do, basically they're like, you mean ChatGPT? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's part of it, right? You should definitely be engaging with that. But what are even some practical tools? Where should someone even start if they want to get involved with AI or learn about AI? Where would they go?
So as a real estate agent, and, in my case, as a real estate broker, if a new agent came to me today and said, hey, I'm new to this industry, I'm new to being a service-based provider, and I want to start using AI to help, help me be more effective and more efficient and all of that. I would say that the easiest way to start is with simple generative AI, which is ChatGPT and Claude and all of those. Learning how to use those tools is obviously the first step in kind of learning how the tools are being trained when you're using them and how they're able to be manipulated and retrained when you're using them. So that's a simple, just like before you get into agentic AI or any other AI tools that can do things like lead follow-up and content creation and video and audio, because now you can basically apply AI to any level of content creation that there is. So first starting there, learning how the tools work when you speak to them and how they can be trained and iterated.
So how would they learn that, Bianca? So, take me from day one. I show up. I've never done this before. What would what's the practical, what would I actually do to start learning? Is it just going on ChatGPT and type something? How would you do that?
As a lifelong learner, my answer to that is always be resourceful. Utilize the education that's out there on YouTube and, on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere that you can learn about how to use AI. Pay for a course if you need to pay for a course, get a coach, get a mentor, whatever. But step one is saying, okay, I need to be resourceful if I want to learn a new skill. But beyond that, practically going into the tools like ChatGPT and starting to use it for something very simple. You always hear people talk about how to use it in your personal life as a consumer, something to do within your home or the way you manage your home or simple business things and, simple copywriting, things like that. But also a great way to learn how to use it is to ask ChatGPT, how do you use it? Teach me
Right.
what I need to know about using generative AI. And it will tell you. So that would be kind of like the first step. And then as you begin to learn how a natural large language model starts to be trained based on what you tell it and how to retrain it, then you can start getting into different things such as image and video and audio. And now we're at the point where we're at agentic AI, where agentic AI are basically standalone AI agents that can do tasks. It used to be that you would have a task, like you talk to ChatGPT, it responds. And then that's it. If you don't tell it to do anything else, the conversation dies there. But now with agentic AI, we have tools on the market that can now stand alone, do tasks such as go into your database and reactivate old leads, if you own a business, or it can start to engage with new leads that are coming in, all doing it autonomously while you are away from the computer. That's not an AI agent like ChatGPT where you have to tell it what to do and wait for it to respond. It's given an end goal and it'll continue to work on that task until the end goal is complete.
So first, I've never even heard of that, to be honest. And I use AI a decent amount, I guess, probably not compared to you. But, for me, one of the easiest shifts was I just stopped Googling and I started ChatGPTing. I don't know what you would call that, right? But I just started asking ChatGPT.
It's called AI engine optimization, just so you know.
That's harder to say than ChatGPT. I think that's what we should say. Google wasn't a word either, right, Bianca, until it became a word or a verb. And so, for me, that was the easiest action to take initially, is just asking it questions. And then for me, it was just retraining my own brain to say, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, my wife uses it, for example, for meal planning. Hey, this is what we have, and this is how we eat, and I need blah blah blah, get me this, and it's like, boom, here's some ideas. Or I'll do it all the time for breakfast, right? Because I make breakfast for the kiddos. Like, I need help figuring this out, give me a quick easy thing, whatever, here's a quick easy pancake recipe with Greek yogurt that has high protein, whatever it is. And it's so helpful, and boom, it's right there. And the difference between that and Google is I can interact with it and say, well, I want you to remove this, can you take eggs out because they're out of eggs, and do this. Yeah, no limitations, unbelievable. And like you said, the learning part, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bianca, but the learning part, a lot of it is I just engage with it enough that it learns what I like and what I don't like. And, so now if I ask for a simple pancake recipe, for example, it'll just give me one that's high in protein, right? It'll say, here's a recipe that's high in protein for the kids, and do you want the macros? It's like, yes, please give me those, right? So it learns what I've already, it presumes what I'm going to ask, and it's right, and it's crazy. And so, for an agent, I would say just start doing that, just engage that way, and you'll see what is actually happening. And going back to, again, from a biblical perspective, the Lord also created man and woman, right? But men and women with the mental capacity to create things like this, right? And so if this was, I don't know that I can make a blanket statement, right, Bianca, but like if this was just pure evil, I don't know that the Lord would have granted us the wisdom to have created this. So will it be used for evil? Undoubtedly, because we are sinful man, and everyone's going to do that, right? Like at some point, all of us will sin. I hate that that's true, but using these tools, and some, at a much greater level than others, but the Lord granted us that ability to do it. So like, okay, I'm going to engage with it. I'm going to understand it. How can I use it to help other people? Literally had a friend of mine, Bianca, the other day. This is not necessarily business. It's not business related, but as an example, a friend of mine she's a young mom like my wife is. She goes to church with us, and was talking about cataracts that she's dealt with in her eyes, and doesn't want to have to get surgery and all this stuff. And I was like, well, hey, have you asked ChatGPT to look at this from a more holistic perspective, right? And I love this guy Gary Brecka, who's more of a holistic approach, human biologist. So I just said, hey, you are Gary Brecka, this is who I am and this is what's going on. Give me some. And it was like, boom, here's some ideas. Here's what he would have said. And so there's so many uses to that, right? For an agent just to get used to, just engage with it, right?
Yeah.
Just ask questions about it. Just, talk to it, for lack of a better. And it's going to be weird at the beginning. That's okay, right? Like everything's weird at the beginning. Getting your real estate license, trying to sell a home is weird at the beginning, right? All of those pieces are strange. And then I think to your point, Bianca, and you tell me, but once you kind of get used to that and you'll see the power of it, you'll just naturally want to learn more. But then maybe you open your eyes and say, man, what other tools are out there that can help me do it? So, okay, Bianca, so let's say an agent is already ChatGPTing and they're engaged with it and they're doing those pieces. And then they're like, well, now what do I do to actually make it help my business? What would be the next steps? What we do? And I definitely want you to talk about Cayenne because it's an amazing tool, but what would be the next steps for an agent to say, okay, I get it. I'm on board with AI. I just don't know what to do. And there's too much stuff out there. How would you, where would you lead somebody?
You said a few things there that I
Please.
definitely want to piggyback off of. When you said, it's kind of weird at first, I love that you said that because that kind of circles back to when you first start engaging with AI, it truly is as if you were kind of dating. I call it like the initial dating or the initial getting to know somebody or the new hire, whatever, in a human relationship, when you're first kind of getting to know somebody, it could be a bit awkward, right? And so when you're first starting to engage with AI, it truly is like that in the sense of you got to put in the work to get to know the thing and how the thing is and how it reacts and all of that. But a little pro tip, when you were talking about like with your pancakes, right? Your simple recipe for pancakes. And I think a lot of people don't do this. When you're talking to it, you can rate it and you should rate your conversations often and its responses. Natively in the UI, the tools have a thumbs up and a thumbs down at the end of every response. And I think that those are highly underutilized. So when you really like what kind of output it's giving you, not only can you push the little thumbs up if there's a native option in the UI, but you should actually tell it, I approve of this kind of response, or I approve of this specific outcome or anything like that. If you say that, then you're able to truly start training it in that kind of way.
Interesting. It's like you're telling your employee, good job. This is exactly what I wanted. Yeah, interesting.
Correct. And you can even tell it, record this in your memory.
Interesting.
So, especially if you're using this from a work perspective, anytime that you're, going back and forth, maybe trying to put content together or whatever, say, I approve of this mission statement that you created for me. From now on, it is going to be recorded in its memory of that. And I think people sometimes believe that naturally and organically happens. And while it does to an extent, if you're very specific in telling it that you want it to record that in its memory, then it will. Or specifically not record it. Don't ever use this kind of output or give me this kind of approach again for this business or for this topic.
Super interesting. Okay. Yeah, I need to start doing that. Yeah. No, you're right. That's awesome. Again, you're right. Like hearing you think about it, it is like having an employee that you would, if you were a good boss, you'd say, hey, this is exactly what I meant. Or, hey, that was good. It wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Let me explain what I wanted. Right. Or, hey, I don't love this. Like, please, let's not do that again. Right. I don't want to do that again. So giving it feedback, helping, it's weird to call it a nit. I don't know what else to call it, but letting it have feedback so that it's learning, right? Because that's what the language learning model piece is, right? That's ChatGPT is it's learning based on what you say and all the data that it's collected and still collecting. It's learning those things in real time. So, okay. So someone's using ChatGPT, they're engaging with that. And now it's, okay, this is cool. Or this is freaky, but I need to do it. How do they actually engage and make it enhance their business? What do they do? Right. Cause there's so many tools. It's almost overwhelming. Yeah. And there's something new every day. So, how do they do that? And how do they do that well?
So this could be an entire podcast and just about, how can I use AI in my business? What I will say is, and here's kind of a relatively short answer, but if you were to write down all the buckets of your business, in this case, if we're talking about real estate or as a broker, if you manage an office, if you were to write down all of the areas of your business, everything from mission, personal mission, business mission, down to marketing, sales, engagement, conversion, just all of the different buckets. Once you have a bird's eye view of all of the areas, then you can kind of mind map from there down and start to put all the areas under those areas, and then highlight what are the things that you are really good at. What are the things that you don't like doing? Even if you're good at it, but you just don't like doing it and they're not your forte, start to identify and label which ones are the ones that you just are not good at and or don't like doing, and start there. Then you can start researching different tools that can help you in all of those categories that you've now kind of slimmed down, right? To a smaller chunk of your business that you need help in, and start focusing on finding tools within that. There's wonderful tools that can help with a lot of those, and then there's individual tools that help with individual tasks. So we have a tool called Cayenne, which is an AI suite of different tools that can help real estate agents, brokers, and team leaders help with a ton of different categories, everything from image generation, content creation, role playing, websites, landing pages. So we quite literally have a tool for almost every area of your business. So it's more like an all-in-one platform for those who don't want to take the time to now say, okay, I've narrowed down the top 11 things in my business that I'm not good at and or don't like doing. Now I got to go find 11 different tools to help make these areas better. Cayenne was brought in for someone like that who's like, I just need something where I can log in to one place to do all the things and save a bunch of time and not have a bunch of subscriptions. Because, we all hate having a million different passwords for a million different things and a million different sign-on pages.
That's so true. It is an awesome suite, Bianca. I signed up for it. We had an onboarding call last week. It's amazing. And I actually have a couple hours set aside tomorrow to play with it, right? Because I'm like, there's a lot of good stuff in here and I want to understand what it is. So it'll be in the show notes, but real quick, how would they go sign up for that?
They can go to cayenne.freedomagency.
Cool. Okay. And K-I-A-N. Yeah, K-I-A-N. It is amazing. And it's what, like $29 a month, which is shocking. So go jump on that right now. Get involved with that. Definitely. Yeah. But I think it's fascinating as I think about these different tools and I don't understand them, right, Bianca? Because to me, it's like my limited understanding of AI. I don't understand why ChatGPT can't do everything and why I need to go use other tools, right? Like, I don't know. I just feel like, isn't that the thing? That's what everybody knows. Why can't I just use that? I've found out that I can't, right? But I love the concept of these are the things I'm good at. These are the things I enjoy doing. And I'm not going to necessarily take those away or off my plate. Maybe I'll enhance them some, right? So for example, I don't love social media, but I don't mind making a reel. I like to talk. I talk too much probably, but I don't want to edit it. And so there's so many good editing tools that, maybe it's not as good, quote unquote, as I would do if I spent hours on it, but it can be 80% as good. Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah, you're right. That's totally true. Like it's the 80% is good in like 3 minutes. So that's awesome. And so I feel like I can get a lot more done, in the things that I need to get done. Now, as kind of as we come to a close, this is not a practical question per se, but I do want to get your take on this because swinging back, because there is the practical component, there's the spiritual component. But I think one of the challenges that I run into myself that I see, I don't know if it's the industry or just people in general, Bianca, but it has become this idea that we should all be so hyper efficient, right? That it's not necessarily that I'm using it to make me better and it's allowing me to slow down and think and process and read and pray and do all those things because the AI is, taking care of all this other stuff, making me more hyper and more the feeling of I got to get all of the, there was no way before that I could do this and do that and do that, but now I can, so I better be doing all of it, right? And I don't think that's a helpful approach, and that's not, let me pause. That's not AI's fault, everybody. That's the sin in your own heart, right? And we need to ask the Lord to grant us self-control and discipline.
That's the O in the soul framework, as far as the obedience to be.
There you go. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's right. And so I think, but that's a struggle, right? I think that's a struggle is what am I now supposed to be, social media, I use my wife as an example a lot is, she exhausting day, she's pregnant, we have 4 little kids, she homeschools, right, all this stuff. But yet she could be scrolling through Instagram and be like, oh, that's a good idea. Look at this mom doing this. I should probably do that too. I'm like, babe,
Yeah.
that does not help you. Now, maybe there's an aspect where if you need to go look for it, like maybe that's helpful because it gives you whatever. But it's this culture of hyper activity and all the stuff. And I don't think that's how the Lord created us to be. So we also have to be careful and cautious, right? And you said that is the obedience, but talk to that person, kind of take us out. And then I want you to hit on a couple things, but kind of take us out with the thought of the agent who says, or the Christian who says, okay, I'm good with that. I'm on it. But now I just feel like I've got to be so hyper efficient and so hyper busy, or I won't keep up with everybody. And I don't want to do that. Talk to that person.
I think that goes back to the basic principles of kind of staying human and the basic principles that we would have had 10 years ago, which was, the hard part of not comparing yourself to others and, not comparing your journey to others, especially now with tools like AI, where speed is really the name of the game. And so when you talk about, feeling like now we have to be so hyper efficient, well, you just don't know what budget other people have, what, tools they're using, how much they've spent learning, and why so many people are able to increase their efficiency and get so much out there to the world so much faster now. And there's never anything wrong with unplugging. As we become more and more and more into this AI-driven world, I do still myself, even as somebody who is, all about the world of AI, I find myself more now making it a priority to unplug. That's why, your morning time, your time with the Lord is so important. And even if it's just those few minutes in the morning or whatever that looks like, it's okay to just unplug and take a little detox break from what other people are doing on YouTube, on social media. A basic principle, I guess, but let's not forget those basic principles as the technology world that we go in just seems to be more and more all-encompassing around us.
It's good. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, at the end of the day, the devil can't destroy you if you're in Christ, but he will distract you. And if it means, here, be hyper efficient, right? And if he can just keep us distracted long enough that we never get to doing what the Lord has called us to do, he won in that context, right? He won. And so, yeah, I think that's a good reminder for us to slow down, be okay, stop comparing ourselves to everybody else, and just, Lord, what do you want me to do, right? And help me show up and do it well. And if that means utilizing AI, then utilize AI and don't be afraid of it, right? If that means that it's okay to not use AI in most of the aspects of your life, whatever, that's okay. I think I've been amazed, at least Bianca, that how many agents feel like they need permission to act in the way that the Lord made them, right? Whether it's from a lead gen perspective, right? To say, you don't have to go door knock if that's not who the Lord made you to be. Now, it does mean that if you are highly relational, you better go figure out how to be really excellent at that, right? Because that's the gift the Lord has given you to steward. So go be really, really good at it. But if you hate these things and they're so far outside your character, then it's okay, because that's not who the Lord made you to be. I think so much of this conversation, Bianca, is a reminder to Christian agents to say this tool exists, right? Nothing inherently is evil or good or bad, right? Because it's just a thing. It doesn't have a soul or anything. It's how humans use it. So don't run away from it. Don't be afraid of it, right? Go engage with it. And I think literally ask the Lord, this tool exists, right? Help me understand how to use it for your glory to enhance the things you already have called me to do, right? Because that's super impactful and that's helpful. And I think to your point of the looking at others, right, and saying, well, what are they doing? And what about me? Whatever. Like when I was, and I've talked about this openly, but when I was having these hardcore anxiety attacks at the beginning of 2024, I went to Psalm 131 a lot. So King David is they think at the time he's living in a cave. King Saul just tried to kill him, and yet he writes, I do not desire things too great or too marvelous for me, but I have calmed and quieted my soul. Yeah. And it's AI and all of the world around you might say, you better be accomplishing so much stuff. Yeah. And we're like, great, I'm going to put my feet out in front of where the Lord wants me and all this. None of that's true. We should, like David, say, I don't want to desire things too great or too marvelous for me. I want a calm and quiet soul. So Lord, just show me what those things are. Right. So
at the end of the day, AI can help us build, but it's the Lord that establishes it.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Unless the Lord builds the house, the laborer labors in vain, is what King Solomon says in Proverbs. Yeah. So no matter how good you are at AI, it don't matter if the Lord doesn't want it to build. Right. So how's that to end it in an AI podcast, right?
I do also want to throw just one thing out there
Please.
too, is that, I am pleased to see just how much heavenly Jesus Bible content creation is out there. There is people are using like video. I don't know if you've seen like if
Yeah.
Moses had an iPhone
Yes.
and
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah. And
fascinating. Yep.
there's so much of that content going out there, which I personally feel like it's incredible to see
Hmm.
because now we're able to spread the gospel so much faster and creative
Yeah.
and be able to capture and possibly save people that would have never had the chance. So I love seeing that kind of creative video, AI generated video stuff
Yeah.
when it
Me
comes to
too.
like,
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
and
And
there's so
I
much of it. And
so much of it. And I agree with you. How cool would it be as Christian agents for us to use AI to say, help me as I do my business and I live my day to day in this world.
Mhm.
Help me be more gospel oriented, right?
Right.
How can I do that in my messaging? How could I do that in this? How can I do that in that? Maybe it's, to your point, Bianca, maybe the church where that needs you to come volunteer, do X, Y, Z, or the neighbor that just needs you to invite them into your home. You haven't because you've been so busy. Maybe AI can take that off your plate and free you up a little bit to go do the evangelistic work that we're all called to do,
Right.
right? So these are things that can be used for the glory of God,
Absolutely.
like all things, right? And it's how humans use them. So, I think we need to seek and understand a biblical approach. As we wrap here, Bianca, so I know you said you have a couple freebies for us. Sign up for Cayenne Agent. So give us that website one more time. It'll be in the show notes as well, Bianca. And then how do people engage with you? What's your Instagram? If that's where you'd want them to connect, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so if you'd like to check out Cayenne, the all-in-one AI-powered suite of tools for real estate marketing, it's KIAN.freedomagency.ai, and you can get hooked up with 2 days to check it out and start learning it of a free trial. And I have 2 resources that I'd love to give to your listeners, Garrett. One is God's Way to Confidence. If there's any new agents or, even agents that are just feeling kind of burnt out and going through imposter syndrome possibly and feel like they just need a little bit of a refresh, this is actually version 2.0. It was popular in the first iteration of it, so I kind of ramped it up and did version 2.0, and that is a 10-day devotional. So God's Way to Confidence, 10-day devotional. And then I also have a PDF of the Soul Framework that I'd like to give to anybody who would like a copy of that.
It's
And
awesome.
you can find me on Instagram at _Bianka, BIANKA_Downs. So at _Bianka_Downs.
Awesome. And Bianca's an amazing person to follow for Christians trying to understand AI too, because you talk about it a lot, right? And your stories are talking about it a lot. So it's helpful. Bianca, we're definitely going to have you come back because I think these are the conversations that need to be happening, that from a biblical perspective in the business and, in the Christian life in general, how do we approach AI, and I don't want to be afraid of those things. And so I so much appreciate your heart and your willingness to come share with us and even the things that you're doing with Cayenne and the other pieces that you're building. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Christian agents, we love you. We hope this was a blessing to you as you seek to rightly understand what is a godly biblical approach to AI and how do I even get started. Reach out to Bianca if you want help. You can ask me and I'll point you to her because I don't know either, really. The point is this: we want to use everything that we have access to for the glory and honor of the Lord. And let's not avoid the question and just default somewhere. Let's actually seek it out and ask the Lord, where does he want us to land? And then go be excellent at that. That's my hope for myself, for all of us. So we love you, Christian agents, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Garrett.